بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. We stopped last week in the chapter or the bab of Furud al-Wudhu, the things that are obligatory when making wudu. And tonight, inshallah, we start the things that are recommended in wudu, which there are two different levels. Things that are obligatory, and things that are recommended. Things that are obligatory, followed, if it's missed, then the wudu is not valid. Right? Tonight, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to start the things that are recommended in wudu. Meaning, if these things are not done, it doesn't necessarily invalidate the wudu. Like it doesn't necessarily invalidate the wudu. And inshallah, we'll move on after that into the chapter of mess out of khuffain, wiping over the socks when making wudu. So the author, rahimahullah, Musannaf rahimahullah, ومن سننه استقبال قبلة. He says the first thing that is recommended for making wudu is facing the qibla. Facing the qibla the way we pray. Facing the prayer direction. And they say because this is worship, of course wudu is worship, and all worship should be done facing the qibla. If possible, if that's possible. If it's not possible, then well, it's from the sunnah. So if a person is not able to face the qibla when making wudu, then no problem, inshallah. Tayyib, that's the first one. The second recommended or sunnah of wudu is siwak. Using the siwak, cleaning the teeth with the siwak, or the tongue also, cleaning the mouth with siwak. Tayyib. And the ulama explained that is to be done before a person rinses their mouth out. Before the rinsing of the mouth and the cleaning of the cleaning of the nose, that a person can use the siwak. He says number 3, وَبُدَاءَةٌ بِغَسْلِ يَدَيْ غَيْرِ قَائِمٍ مِنْ نَوْمِ لَيْلٍ. The third thing is what we know as washing the hands in the beginning of wudu. At the beginning of wudu, everybody knows we wash the hands, wash the right 3 times, wash the left 3 times. This is something that is sunnah, recommended. And this is for the person, not for the one who woke up from sleeping at night. Right? We spoke about that. In that case, it's obligatory in that case. The one who woke up from sleeping at night, it's obligatory in that case. Not that person, outside of waking up. Meaning throughout the middle of the day, throughout the day you go to make wudu. The question is, do I have to wash my hands 3 times before I make wudu? That's the question. So if somebody asks you, right? Or somebody says, listen, somebody says, I made wudu for dhuhr, and I forgot at the beginning of wudu to wash my right hand and my left hand 3 times. So what happened? I just started with my mouth and I went on. I'm good, they're good. They're good. Later, they say, but I thought I had to wash my hands before I could make wudu. Huh? What does that mean? The sunnah to wash the hands? It's recommended to wash the hands, but if you don't, it's not necessarily going to validate the wudu, and it's not a sinful thing. Even though when a person does that, they miss the reward of what? Of following the Prophet. So the section of the things that are mentioned as sunnah that are recommended is not for the purpose of not doing them. Right? They're not sunnah, meaning I don't have to do this because it's not going to validate my wudu. No. Meaning, what if I did that, nothing, it wasn't enough water. Right? It wasn't enough water. So I didn't wash my hands, but again, I just started with the automatically with my mouth. Or I was rushing, I forgot. Does it invalidate the wudu? In that case, we can say it is sunnah. It is a sunnah. It's recommended. It's not obligatory, which doesn't invalidate it. Which none of these things we shouldn't intentionally not practice something that the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam taught us, and then use as our excuse that it's a sunnah that I don't have to do it. But we should try to do everything that the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam taught us to the best of our ability. He says, and of course, now he mentions the obligation of the one who woke up that night. The one who wakes up from sleeping that night, based on the hadith, that yajibu lahu thalathan ta'abudan, that it's obligatory for the one who wakes up from sleeping that night to wash their hands 3 times before putting them into the ina, clean water. The next sunnah, it says, وَبِمَضْمَضَةٍ فَاسْتِنْشَاقٍ. Sunnah recommended to start with cleaning the mouth first, and then the nose. Cleaning the mouth first, and then the nose recommended. Which means if a person did the nose first and then the mouth, is the wudu valid? The wudu will be valid. He says the next thing, وَمُبَالَغَةٌ فِيهِمَا لِغَيْرِ صَاحٍ. مُبَالَغَ فِيهِمَا لِغَيْرِ صَاحٍ. To, I don't want to use the word. Mubalagha is to do it, let's say this, to do it extra good, to use a lot of water when cleaning the mouth out. Not just a little bit of water. To clean the mouth out with a lot of water, not just a little sip. To use a lot of water and to clean very good. That may almost sound like a person, and I heard people say this sometimes, a brother's making the wudu at the wudu station, he puts a lot of water and he gargles. He does it a lot, right? Sunnah. If we don't know the sunnah, because I heard people say that's extra overboard, you're doing too much wrong. Because he was gargling, he was cleaning out. Sunnah is mubalagha, is to do it, clean it, make sure everything is out the mouth. The point is to clean the mouth, right? To stand before Allah Jalla. Now, if we was brushing teeth, we wouldn't have a problem with it to go to work, right? People don't have no problem brushing their teeth and brushing their tongue, not for the salah. They go stand in front of the creation for a job interview, or just so people won't say anything about it. We go to, right, we'll do that extra. But if we do it for the salah, then some of us frown on it. Allah musta'an. Tayyib. They say to use a lot of water for cleaning the mouth and for cleaning the nose for the person who's not fasting. Specifically, they say, except for the person who's fasting, that they shouldn't use a lot of water, they shouldn't use too much water, and they shouldn't use too much water in the mouth or the nose. Why not? It might cause the water to go down the throat, and you don't want to do anything that's going to possibly break the fast. Right? So they say that to use a lot of water is recommended as long as you're not fasting. And if you're not fasting. If you're fasting, they say you shouldn't use as much water as to be safe, to save yourself from swallowing the water, which may be problematic for breaking the fast. طيب. He says, وَتَخْلِيلُ شَعْرٍ كَثِيفٍ. تَخْلِيل شَعْرٍ كَثِيفٍ. Like the lihya. In this case, if we say the beard, the lihya is 2 types in this situation. Either A person's beard, and you can see their skin through the beard, which means it's not that thick, right? You can see their actual skin. You look at their face, they got a beard, but you can see the skin behind the beard, right? Or B, a person's beard is so thick that you can't see any skin. Everybody with me? Clear? Tayyib. For the person where the skin can be seen, it's obligatory to what? Wash, taqleed, wash the skin, make sure to touch the face. It's not enough to do something like this. You gotta make sure if the skin can be seen, then the skin, even though it's under this part of the face, it needs to be washed. It needs to be touched without it. Takhleel, this is takhleel, to run the fingers through. Takhleel is to run the fingers through the hair. That's what takhleel is. So it says the sunnah of wudhu is takhleel, to run the fingers through when the hair is thick. When the hair is thick, it's sunnah to run it through. What if the hair is thin? You can see the skin. It's obligatory now. You got to make sure that the skin. Everybody with me the difference? A person's beard can be so thick you can't see. A brother's beard can be so thick you can't see the skin behind it. Right? In that case, it's sunnah for him to do this, and that's enough. To run his fingers through, and that's enough. He doesn't have to actually split the beard and go through and, right, to touch every part of the face. But the person who can see the skin, then it'll be obligatory on them to clean it like that, with the running the hands through, the fingers through. But also, sunnah takhleel al-asabi'. When you see a person making wudhu, and they turn their hand over, and they do this, right, with the hand. They put the hand and they touch between the hands. That is sunnah. What's the benefit of doing that? Make sure everything is wet. What if everything is wet without doing that? Huh? Now what if my hand is wet? I put my hand under the water and everything is wet and I don't do this. It's good as long as everything is washed. Right? That's why it says takhleel is sunnah fil asabi'. It's sunnah to do the fingers between that. Unless a person has a situation, right? That's sunnah, y'all, as long as everything is wet. If everything is not wet, then it's obligatory to make sure that spot gets wet. Some people have like thick hands or skin that's thick between the fingers, right? That if they ran water on it, everything might not get wet, right? And if everything is not wet, then that means that part of the body is not washed properly. That everything on that part has to be totally wet. If that's the case, if the hand is thick or the skin is thick or it's a wedge or something like that, in that case, this becomes obligatory to do that in order to make sure everything is wet. But if there's no need for that and everything is wet, then the running the fingers through becomes sunnah. Sheikh?
You said two things, Sheikh. You said it's sunnah to go through the fingers.
For who?
If the hands is not all the way wet. And if the fingers is thick.
Sunnah for who? The sunnah to go through the fingers for who? Again?
You said that it's sunnah to go through the fingers.
For who?
To make sure.
For what person?
For the one hand is already wet.
For the one that's, everything is already wet, is sunnah.
But if it's not wet.
If it's not wet, then it's obligatory. Because you gotta make sure all of that is wet. Everything has to be washed on that body part. And the same thing for the foot. Same thing for the foot. That's why you see sometimes people, they go to the wudhu station and they stick their foot under the water and they just turn and just wash their foot, make sure the ankle and they don't touch the foot. Is that enough? Huh? You gotta make sure it's enough, but you gotta make sure when you do that, you have to make sure that everything has been washed. When that happens, that becomes, if you want to just double trip the delk, which is the rubbing, and this, you know how you do this and you do all that, that becomes recommended, that's sunnah, the delk.
It's that the hands or the feet or whatever, it's that they are wet.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that they're touched and made.
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily. Wudhu is not, we're not like what we say, we're not washing up.
Yeah.
We're not trying to like literally pull dirt and musk off of us, right? That's right, that's the tamleef. If we wanted to wash, it's a word for that, tamleef.
But I'm talking about, is the hand supposed to touch those particular points?
It doesn't necessarily have to.
Okay.
What has to happen is those body parts have to be washed. However you wash them, if you pour them with a bottle of water, everything has to be wet though.
Okay.
On top of that, what we do is called delk. We rub it. Ta'keed, and that's to make sure that I hit everything. Right? But what if I hit everything without a rub like that? Then it's enough. That's why takhleel falls into the same thing, which is running the hands through. I don't have to run my hands through. I don't have to do this on my hand if everything is already washed. Everybody clear? So running the fingers through is for the hair that is, what, kafif. When you got a thick beard where you can't see the skin behind it. In that case, putting the fingers through is recommended, sunnah. But if a person has a thin beard and the skin can be seen, then in that case, washing the face, when they wash the face, they want to make sure they go through and touch the face so that everything is clean when you wash the face.
I got a question. So, if washing the hands is something to begin with, it's not obligatory, how is the technique if the fingers aren't wet obligatory?
If washing the hands aren't obligatory in the beginning,
Then how come if I do wash my hands and they're not all the way wet, how is that obligatory?
the washing of the hands, and everybody got the question? The washing of the hands is not obligatory in the beginning of Wudhu. But the washing of the hand is obligatory when? When you do your arm. So when you get to your arm, the hand is considered part of the yet at this point. So everything is obligatory to be wet from the fingertip up and including the elbow. That means you gotta make sure everything is wet, all of this. So if you do something like that, like you see people, sometimes, depending on what type of wudu station it is, they turn on the water, and they'll stick the hand all the way in like this. Right? And then turn it over and be like that. And just, right? And he might never, if you look at him, he might never rub. It's possible he never rubs it in like that. You with me? That by itself, at this point, all of this, the hand becomes obligatory. You with me? طيب. It says next, وَالْغَسْلَ ثَانِيَةً وَثَالِثًا. And the second and third wash for the body parts that are washed more than once. To wash the body, or to wash the arm, or to wash the face more than one time, to do it twice, is sunnah. To do it 3 times is also from the sunnah. It's even better. At least doing it 1 time is what? Obligatory. Everybody clear? Washing the face. Everything that we do 3 times, washing the face, cleaning the mouth out, cleaning the nose out, right? Washing the feet with the ankles. We do those 3 times. But if that's sunnah, what if it's only a little bit of water? Y'all out and about, moving around, there's 2 of y'all, y'all got 1 of these. There's 1 of these. This is why you gotta know how to make wudu, because it doesn't necessitate you gonna make a whole wudu and leave his brother a little. That's not right. Y'all out all day, then they come to wudu, you gonna just, you know what I'm saying? It don't necessitate that you need this much water. And that's why it's important to know what a mud is. How much of the process something used to make wudu. At that point, for example, then it's enough to do 1. And this is enough. This is enough for maybe 3 people. Possibly 4, if you know what you're doing. Now this is the question now. A person says, we know it's obligatory to wash the body part once. Like, what if a person washes the body part, right? They wash their arm. They do their arm. And it happens. It happens. Back here is still dry. Right? That means he missed the spot, or she missed the spot. So you say, okay, you know, you missed the spot, your jaw dry right on the back. So he does what? He washes it again. Right? He covers the spot, he cleans it, he washes it again, he covers the dry spot. How many times did he wash? 4, 2, 4.
Did he original wash? How many times did that?
What you mean?
Like the first time he did it before he messed the...
He washed it, and he missed the spot. Somebody told him, he went over it again, and he got the spot. He did it? Once? Huh? That's not a trick question, y'all. He did it once. He did it twice, but how did he do it once? You saw him do it twice, didn't you? So how did he do it once if you saw him do it twice? Huh? It only counts for 1. An incomplete wash doesn't count as a wash. It's a dry spot. So in reality, It's not sufficient as a wash. Clear?
Like, reference to that. Say you finish your wudu, and then somebody tell you, like, you missed the spot, but you already done. Would it be permissible to just go back and wash that spot, or do you gotta be wudu?
It would depend on how long after you finish the wudu.
A lot of the time, remember in our beef, he said, go be over.
Right. It depends, because from the condition of wudu is
Oh, the dry.
the dry. If it all dried up, then you missed the window to go back and fix it. You standing at the sink, you get to your foot, right? You get to your left foot, you wash your left foot, somebody walk up and say, yo, your whole elbow dry on the left. Everything is still wet. In reality, you still on that spot that you didn't finish in reality, and everything's still wet. So the second and third wash of whatever body part it is sunnah. It's sunnah. وَكُرِهَ أَكْثَرُ وَكُرِهَ, and is disliked to do more than 3 washes. It's disliked to do more than 3 washes on a body part. The sunnah at the highest point is 3. And the early man gives, some say haram, some say it's haram and permissible to do more than 3. They mentioned different reasons. Of course, it goes against the practice of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Others said that it's disliked because they're wasting water. It's a waste of water. 4 is a waste of water. If you did 3 complete washes on a body part, there is nothing better than that, because that's what the Prophet ﷺ did. So for you to do 4 is a waste now. So therefore they say it's disliked. طيب. He said, وَسُنَّ بَعْدَ فَرَاغِهِ رَفْعُ بَصْرِهِ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ وَقَوْلُ مَا وَرَدَ وَاللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ. He said, the last thing he says in this chapter is also from the sunnahs recommended when a person finishes wudu, and he mentions 2 things that are recommended. He says, رَفْعُ بَصْرِهِ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ, that a person looks to the sky. That a person looks to the sky and they recite one of the a dua at the end of the wudu. And it's a bunch of du'as that we made at the end of the wudu. In that book, Fortress of the Muslim, it's a lot of du'as that you can make at the end of the wudu. That's why he doesn't mention anything specific. He says, well, qawlu ma warad, and to say something that has been narrated. Say one of the narrations of dua. And some have argued the authenticity of the hadith about raising the eyes to the sky. Everybody doesn't agree that that's sunnah based on the authenticity or lack of that hadith. Obligatory? La. Sunnah. The dua at the end is sunnah. Sunnah at the end to say, it's not a specific one, but something that has been narrated. And there's more than one. There's more than one way of one dua is done.
So you keep saying that this is sunnah, this is obligatory. How do we, that's not versed, how do we distinguish what's the sunnah that we have to do, tashriya, and the sunnah that's just recommended? How do we distinguish if the word is the same?
You do what you're doing now. That's the only way to do it. This is the only way you gotta learn it. There's no, meaning there is no chart of things. You know what I'm saying? That would be easy. If there was a whole chart, all of these things, there is no chart. Generally, commands, and it takes a little more. At this level, honestly, the books that are on this level are not designed like that. It takes a little more for an individual person to be able to distinguish what's meant by sunnah here. It takes a little more. It's not like every person is going to be able to, a person going to see the word sunnah, right? Recommended, because sunnah, like was mentioned in the class the other day, sunnah has different meanings, right? It has different meanings. So it takes a little more from a person to be able to distinguish. Now, with that, it depends on the book, but generally, commands from Allah and His Messenger ﷺ are things that are obligatory when they command us to do something. That's the rule of thumb, the origin also. is that command. When Allah commands to do something, the origin of that command is that it's obligatory. Not that it's just recommended to do. You with me? If Allah commands us, well, people salah
I got that.
and establish the prayer. Like, what's the ruling on establishing the salah? It's obligatory. How do you know it's obligatory?
Because Allah commanded.
Because Allah commanded us. And what's the origin of a command? You with me? Go to the sunnah. Same thing. If I say someone commands you to do something, then the asl is that it is obligatory. Clear? Like, move down. Everybody clear on that? That's the asl. Now we go to what are called either exceptions to the rule. All commands don't necessarily mean things are obligatory. How do you know now? You know based on other things that come with the command. Right? So say, for example, you have one text that shows it is obligatory as a command, and then you have another text that shows that the Prophet ﷺ didn't do it all the time. One text shows it's a command, and then another text shows that the Prophet ﷺ did not do that thing all the time. Is it possible that something is obligatory for the Muslims, and that the Prophet ﷺ leaves off something that is obligatory? Therefore, that shows that that thing is not on the level of being obligatory. It's moved down to being something, what? Recommended, or highly recommended. You with me? It's called qara'in. Qarina is like a sign, an outside sign that shows you that something has moved from one level to another. You with me? And that's why you got different texts. That's why a person can't make a ruling on one text. You can't look at one hadith and then just put a hook on it. What if there's other things that pull from that ruling? You with me? That support or that show that it's not what it really looks like. Based on, and this we used to have to do in class, based on this hadith in front of me, yes, this action would be obligatory. Why? For everything we just said. It's a command. The origin of a command is that it is obligatory. Khas. Based on that text. That's not looking at the other texts that might surround the same issue. If we bring the other texts that surround the issue, then it might show something else. You with me? So it takes a little more, and the words are interchangeable, they're used interchangeably. So, and also another factor is what science we're talking about. We're talking about fiqh, sunnah is one meaning. When you go to aqidah, sunnah has another meaning. You with me? Huh? When you go to aqidah, sunnah don't necessarily carry the same exact meaning. That's why the books say sharh sunnah, right? Explanation of the creed. All right, so it depends on, it's a lot of factors working there. But Fasl. He moves on to the chapter of al-masih. Al-masih ala khuffayn. Wiping over the socks. And he brings us after the chapter of Wudhu, because the wiping over the socks is, if we say, an allowance for washing the foot in Wudhu, washing the feet in Wudhu. So rukhsa. It's a rukhsa, it's called. Basically, it's a pass not to do the original action. The original action is to wash the foot. Right? That's the origin that comes in the ayah. Wash the feet, right, up to including the ankles. That's the origin. Like, if we have to wash the feet, if the feet have to be washed with the ankle, where do we get off and how are we allowed to wipe now? You with me? It's called a rukhsa. It's a pass. It's an allowance. Based on what? The ayah says wash in the Quran. So where do we get off wiping now? We have something, we have an outside now. This is an example. If we stuck just to the ayah, the foot always has to be washed. If we only stick to that nas to text the ayah and sort of the Ma'idah, that verse, we always gotta wash the feet. Right? Tayyib. Wash the feet is obligatory. Is it ever permissible not to literally wash the feet, but to just wipe? All right, from where? Not from that ayah, but from other texts that have to be put together.
And what if a person, you know, you got the Quranites,
Yeah.
when they say, they say, you know, I'm gonna just stick to the ayat since that's sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because sometimes the sunnah is interchangeable, you know, it kind of like lessens, or the tashriya gets lost. You know what I mean? The translation, because they say this is sunnah, this is
Oh, the
sunnah.
translation. But that's on the translator. That's the translator's job.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
That's
Though?
the translator's job to translate is not always verbatim. And this is important that the translator, depending on the subject, has to understand the issue. Because somebody translates a book, don't mean they understand the issue. They might understand the Arabic words, and they might be able to translate into the Arabic word, but they might not understand the issue. Because some things can't be translated verbatim. You have to translate it so that it's understood what is meant. Right? The meaning. You have to translate what the author intends by that word. And the only way you know what the author intends a lot of times is to know the background. You gotta have some background about the whole issue in itself. You with me? Later. So in this case, the ayah says wash the foot. Now what if somebody says, I'm gonna just stick to the ayah? I'm not wiping. I'm gonna just stick to the ayah. We'll get to that, inshallah. Later. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah said, there's nothing in my heart. I have no reservations at all about making mess. Why? Because there's 40 hadith narrated about making mess, authentic hadith. So he's basically saying my heart is content. No problem, nothing in my chest about making mess, because there's plenty of narrations that show the permissibility of doing it. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. And other passages and stuff like that.
So I have a question. Was it Imam Ahmed? You know, like you know how some of the books have the books of Aqidah and stuff. You know, say like when the Sunnah is making mess.
Mm-hmm.
And I know specifically, I think like that's because like the Shiite, like the Rafa, that they don't make mess. So some of those imams will go to the Aqidah.
They put
They put mess.
They put mess.
Aqidah.
Right.
So it's from the Aqidah of
There you go.
Did that come about after Imam Ahmed, that entrance of that into the books?
After Imam Ahmed?
Yeah, that with him, his like.
Is he the first one to do that?
Yeah.
Allah, I'm not sure. I don't know if he's the first to do that. Meaning this is not a book of Aqidah. This is a book of fiqh. So wiping over the socks is a fiqh issue. It has nothing to do with Aqidah. But when you look in the books of Aqidah, some of the ulama, they put this issue specifically in Aqidah books. Why? Because Ahl Bid'ah go against Ahl Sunnah in wiping over the socks. So in order to show that from the belief of Ahl Sunnah that we wipe over the socks, they took this fifth issue and they put it in the books of Aqidah. Yeah, it comes in a lot of Aqidah books. You know why we're talking about washing the feet? Because real Ahl Bid'ah. Real innovators. Oh, no. He just said, that's his statement. There are 40 authentic hadith narrated about wiping over the socks. So a person should be content. No question, can I really do this or not? It's narrations, authentic narrations. He says, firstly, يَجُوزُ مَسْحُ عَلَى خُفٍّ وَنَحْوِهِ. This is important to listen to the word. He says, يَجُوزُ al-mashu. It's permissible to wipe over the khuf wa nahwi. Over the khuf is, if anybody knows, the leather sock. It's usually most well known as the khuf, the leather sock. But it's not restricted to the leather sock. That's why it says wa nahwi, and things that take place of the leather sock, we say. He says yajuzu, which is it's permissible. It's permissible to wipe over the khuf and things like the khuf, things that take place in the khuf. He didn't say sock. What else? Shoes. Right? With the condition. It's conditions to wiping. He'll mention that. We'll mention that later. A khuf is something that is worn on the foot that covers the area that has to be washed. Something that is worn on the foot that covers the area that has to be washed. That's how they define the khuf. ما يلبس على القدم ساترا محل الفرض. Something worn on the foot that covers the area that's obligatory to wash.
I have a question. A few years ago, one guy mentioned, like, I don't know, but like, he said that if you have socks worn, and the socks cover the ankle, and you have a boot, like a boot or a shoe on top of that, that covers the ankle as well, or another pair of socks, for example. I was told, I don't know if this is right or not, but I was told that you have to wipe over whatever is touching the actual foot. And as a result, like after that, I stopped. Like sometimes I'd be at work, working, and I used to wipe over the boots. And of course, I have socks underneath them. They hit the ankle, the boot hits the ankle. I would wipe over my boots. After I was told that, I thought that like I should wipe over the sock because that's touching my actual foot. Can I wipe over the boot? Or do I have to?
If it fits the condition, we don't get to that, but if it fits the condition, then you can make mess on it. But what's more important is there's no doubt in what you did, the way you did it, that is no problem.
Wipe over.
You took the boot off and wiped the sock, no problem.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
No doubt about that. So when it comes to ibadah, you want to go with something there's no doubt, right? No doubt I can wipe over my sock. I know I can wipe over my sock, it fits all the conditions. Can I wipe over my boot? Somebody brought you some new information that you don't know, you're not clear, go with what you're clear about. What's clear is that I know if I take over my boot and wipe them good. You with me? But we're going to get to that because they mentioned conditions. Like, the first thing we can wipe over is, we'll keep it general and say socks. Like, which is not restricted to the leather hoof. It's not restricted to the leather sock. The second thing is, وَإِمَامًا ذَكَرٍ مُحَنَّكَةٍ أَوْ ذَاتِ ذُبَابًا. Or, does anybody know what the imama is? Turban, we call it a turban. The turban, but not all turbans. They specify what turban can be wiped over. The turban that is specified, number one, this is a question, y'all, sisters, because now sisters women wear a type of a turban. Right? They got these head things that they wear, and they might look like they might call them turbans, whether they're authentically turbans fit the description or not. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know the name of them.
Come on, some of the Saudi sisters be wearing them.
Oh, sisters, people in America wear them.
They got like bridges in them,
It's like, you could put it on, it's like a one thing. I think the Sikhs wear them. You know the Sikh, the people who drive the cab? A lot of them drive cabs now. A lot of them drive cabs, they look Muslim. A lot of people think they're Muslims, but they're not Muslims, right? And they wear those head wraps. Yeah, right? They call them turbans too. All right. Women wear them now.
Yeah.
Like, that's the point. The point is now women wear those and men wear them. Not everything that's called a turban can be wiped over. Clear? Those things are called turbans. It's another turban we know. It's different ways. The turban, the condition of the turban is that the turban is for who? Men or women? Men. So a woman wearing that, she couldn't wipe over that anyway. The turban is addressed to the man. The turban that we know, the most famous turban that we know, how does it look? It's wrapped up in the top, right? There you go. It's wrapped up top. Like, the turban that can be wiped on is not that one. It's the turban that wraps here. And sometimes you see people with the turban wrapped under here. You with me? Sisters, I don't know if y'all. Sometimes, sisters, the turban is wrapped under the neck on the brothers. It's wrapped on the top and it's wrapped under the chin. There you go. Yeah, they'll show them on the camera, they show them with the turban wrapped on the top of the head and under the neck. There you are. Mauritania, some of the, and yeah. Or, that's one turban. The other turban that can be wiped on is the one that we know of with the tail in the back. With the tail in the back, the one that the tail hangs down in the back, right? Those are the two turbans that can be wiped on, that a man is wearing them. طيب, that's the second thing that can be wiped on. The third thing that can be wiped on, وَخُمْرِ نِسَاءٍ مُدَارَةٍ تَحْتَ حُلُوقِهِنَّ. The khimar of the woman. Sisters, pay attention. Because not all khimars can be wiped over. And if you wipe over the wrong thing, then what does that do to the wudu? It validates the wudu. So you got to make sure you're wiping over the right type of khimar. Everything you put on your head cannot be wiped over like it's a sock. Clear? For your wives, all of our wives, that everything that they wear on their head is not permissible to be wiped over. Just like everything we put on our heads can't be wiped over. You can't wipe over a kufi. You go to Saudi and put on one of the shimals, the red and white joint, you can't wipe over that. Like the khimar of the woman that is used now, or is more famous now, is like the shayla that they wear. That it has to be wrapped under the chin. It's wrapped around. Right? A lot of this benefits, the benefit of the mess is that the things that are being wiped off is some difficulty in removing them. Socks, right? A turban that's wrapped on the top, wrapped under, there's some difficulty in removing it. Like a woman with a khimar. The khimar is not just, back in the day they used to do the khimar and put the safety pin, right? The good old days. The good old days. Now, long time. The shayla that we know of now, or the tarha, that's wrapped. They gotta be wrapped. It can't just be on there, because that's easily removed. Things that are easily removed are generally not wiped over. The shayla or the tarha that they put on, right? It starts here, and they do this. They wrap it, depending on how big it is. All right? That can be wiped over with conditions. He didn't get to the conditions yet. He's just saying, what can we wipe over? The fourth thing that can be wiped over, وَعَلَى جَبِيرَةٍ لَمْ تُجَاوِزْ قَدْرَ الْحَاجَةِ إِلَى حِلِّهَا. The last thing that can be wiped over is the jabira is either it could be a cast or it could be a bandage, depending on the injury. Hard cast, soft cast, splint, something that's on there is not coming off, right? You can't take it off, right? Or taking it off is going to cause some damage. Taking it off is going to cause some harm. If the doctor gives you the okay that you can take it on and off, then that's a different story. But if it's on there, they say you can't take this off for 6 weeks. This got to be on there for 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. You can't take it off. If you take it off, this is going to happen. The bone is going to shift. It could lead to When it's like that and it has to be on it, this jabira can be wiped over. As long, not every cast, y'all, pay attention. The jabira, the cast, or the bandage that when it's placed on, that it only covers the damaged area. It only covers the damaged area. Methadone. Say, for example, a person has 2 broken fingers. Right? But this is an example. I don't know how long the cast has to be for a broken finger. Right? Or a wrist, whatever. Let's just say a finger because it starts up here. Let's assume a cast for a broken finger doesn't necessarily have to come and include the elbow, does it?
No.
But say they put a cast on you, you broke 2 fingers or a finger, and they put a cast from the fingers all the way up to here. You know how they cut it up here? In that case, what's really needed is what? That part needs it, but they put extra on it. Everybody with me? The doctors put extra bandage or cast on a person that they don't really need. And that extra covers what is supposed to be washed. Everybody clear? You with me? Who's not clear what I'm talking about? You break 2 fingers, it should only come, methadone for example, in order for that to heal properly, it goes right here. Maybe it was a new doctor, they wanted to be safe, they say we're just gonna go all the way up with it. For real, all of that is not needed, but now they cover the place that has to be washed. That's the issue, all right? That's why it says the jabira, the bandage that covers the place that it needs to cover, that you can wipe over that place that it needs to cover, up until it heals. The whole time. If it's 6 weeks, you can keep wiping that bandage till it's totally healed.
But what happens if that happens? Does that fall on the person? Because a cast is not something you can take off.
We're going to get to that. Inshallah. So yeah, we're going to get to that. Inshallah. Everybody clear up? So if it's on there for 6 weeks, you can wipe it for 6 weeks. Right? طيب. وإن جاوزته أو وضعها على غير طهارة لزم نزعها. لزم نزعها. طيب. If they go above what is needed, like we just said, it only needs to come here, and they go beyond that. طيب. Or there's two things, two situations. Number one, they go beyond what is actually needed, like we just spoke about. That's one issue. Or any of these things is done, whatever you put on, all of the 4 things that we can wipe over, the socks, the turban with the conditions, right? The khimar with the conditions after you wrap, or the cast. Firstly, when those things are put on, you have to be in wudu already. You can't put them on and you're not in wudu. You have to be in wudu first before you put your socks on. If you want to wipe over your socks, before you put them on, you have to be in wudu first. If you want to wipe over khimar, sis, before you put your khimar on, you have to be in wudu first, or you can't wipe over that khimar. You can't wipe over those socks if you didn't put them on and you already were in wudu. You can't wipe over that turban, that imama, if you didn't put it on while you were in wudu. Clear? Now the issue is the jabira, the cast. They say you got some, they say you have to be in wudu. How you going to be in wudu if there's an accident? So they argue that. So they argue that that's not even really, is that realistic? Person gets in an accident, right? They take him to the hospital and they put a cast on. That's what they had to do. Is it realistic that a person can make wudu and get tahara? That's not necessarily realistic. So in that one, the cast and the bandages is an issue of khilaf, that they say that that's not a condition. But generally, whatever you wipe over, you have to be in wudu first. This is why it says, if the doctor goes over what needs to be covered, number one, or the thing was put on, the khimar, the socks were put on, right? The turban was put on, the jabira, according to the text of the author, the cast or the bandage was put on, right? If it was put on and you were not in a state of wudu, then what do we have to do in this case? Take them off. Take them off. Meaning you woke up in the morning, you were running late, right? You didn't make wudu before you left the house. You put all your clothes on, you didn't make wudu. That means you put socks on and you didn't make wudu. That means you can't wipe over them socks when it comes time for going. Sis got dressed, you were rushing, whatever the case may be. You put all your clothes on, you put your tarhas, whatever came on, you didn't make wudu first. When it comes time to pray, you can't wipe over that khimar because you are not in wudu when you put it on. Clear? Is everybody clear? طيب. If it comes time for dhuhr and that's what you did, you have to take that thing off like you would normally do. You have to take your socks off, you have to take the khimar off and wipe over your head like you would normally do. Everybody clear? In order to wipe over something, you have to be in wudu when you put it on. Clear? Can't wipe over it if you're in wudu when you put it on. طيب. Now the issue comes, that's even a bandage. Right? Sometimes they put things on that's removable. طيب. فإن خاف الضرر تيمم. If a person has some fear of removing, let's say the cast, you can't take the cast off, right? Or it can be unwrapped, but if you unwrap it, it's going to cause more problems. طيب. Everybody know what it looked like? This is what it looks like right now. Right now, a person goes to the doctor, they're not in wudu. Next thing you know, they put a cast on them that's too high. Now it's time to pray. They have to make wudu. What they going to do? Well, according to the text, they didn't what? They didn't put it on while they were in a state of wudu. So they have to do what? They have to take it off. Like a person's scared, I can't take it off. I take it off. They said this is going to happen, this, there's going to be some harm for taking it off. This is the next case. If they're scared, they fear taking it off is going to cause more of a problem, then they make tayammum. For what? For the part that is extra. This is what it looks like. I go to the doctor, the cast should come here. That means I can wipe for what? For this. But what about this? My elbow and the rest of it. I can't wipe for that. I don't have an excuse to wipe for that. So they're saying, what do you do? They're saying what you do is you wipe that part, that can be wiped, right? But what about this? They say for this, a person, when they're finished with doing, they dry their hands, because the point is, you gotta understand the point. The point of mess is that it makes things easy. You don't have to remove anything. But the conditions with the mess, wiping over something, you have to be in wudu first. Now there's a situation where you're not wudu. There's a situation where you went above what you're supposed to go above. How do you fix it? This is a state of necessity. This is a dire necessity issue. This issue is a necessity. It's an important issue. It's last minute emergency. What's going to happen? They say, well, you wipe that. Wipe what can be wiped. But for the part that was never washed, and it doesn't have the right to be washed, it doesn't have the right to be wiped, because that's not really part of the injury. Right? They say you make tayammum. That means when you're done, your wudu, that you make sure, because sometimes the issue is water can't get on it either. Whatever stipulations the doctor gives you, right, it's important to know the stipulations. Don't let no water touch it. Right? How long? 6 to 8 weeks. Right? Realistic? Huh?
I'm ready for you to stop.
They can't, water can't get on it, you can't take it off. How am I make wudu? That's what we gotta worry about. They say you make mess on that, but for this part that you didn't do anything for, when you're done your wudu, you go back and make tayammum with the intention of the tayammum. The cleansing is for that specific body part. Clear?
Okay. Now you said it a few times. You said you put the cast on further than what's needed.
Amen.
Okay. Personally, I had knee injuries twice.
Okay.
Just a knee injury. With the knee injury, you get a cast on from your ankle to your groin, the entire leg. It's just for the knee. How could we determine what's too much of a cast?
You don't determine. You don't determine. The doctor determines. The doctor determines what is necessary for a cast. Meaning, the doctor may say, or he might not say, he may say, listen, an injury like this, usually it only takes a cast to here. Right? Say, Doc, well, how big is the cast going to be? The cast going to be from here to your elbow. Is that necessary? Not really. They say that's not really necessary for it to heal. But what happens, Doc, if you just put it right here? You need to, all of this affects our worship. So we need to know what happens if it only goes here. Well, if it only goes here, it's not really a problem. But we already got it set up to take it all the way up. Just, we trying out this new whatever. Right? In that case, you would know. If you don't know, then you don't know.
So basically, you're saying, at least, communicate with the doctor.
No doubt.
Because it may be that people are like, oh, wow, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. And they'll be like, we don't have to go all the way up there. We make it right here.
Yeah.
And then you have your problem solved. But he doesn't know.
If you don't say anything, they're going to do what they want to do, basically. They're going to say, do what you want to do. If you sleep, even when you wake up, and this is the point of learning, when you wake up, and you put it's on my finger. Why you got it all the way up here? Well, this is a new cast that we're trying. Well, do I need it all the way up here? No. Well, where do I need it to? Everybody sitting here would know to ask those questions. Allah Alam, if a person's not here, they know to ask those questions. Right? But now you know, okay, if I get anything on me, I don't want it, and it doesn't need to be past it. I only need it on what it needs to be on. And this is what we need to be worried about when we go anywhere, and they talking about doing anything to us. At the end of the day, we Muslim, we have to make wudu. Muslim, we have to pray. So how is this going to affect my worship? But if a person don't know, then their affair is with Allah Jalla wa Ala. Inshallah, we know, so we don't have an excuse. So in that case, then a person, they will wipe what they can wipe in the part that doesn't have the right to be wiped, based on the text, that they will make tayammum at the end with the niyyah of that area that didn't get washed at all. Clear? And I think we'll finish this last part before we stop. وَيَمْسَحُ مُقِيمٌ وَعَاصٍ بِسَفْرِهِ مِنْ حَدَثٍ بَعْدَ لُبْسٍ يَوْمٍ وَلَيْلًا. The next issue is the person that is traveling. Or before that, the time period. Let's say the time period. How long are we allowed to keep wiping over socks? 24 hours. 24 hours, which is called the muqim, the resident. When you're in your hometown, you're not a traveler, you're not traveling, right? You have 24 hours to wipe over the same sock, which means, let's just say you woke up to pray Fajr. You made Wudhu, you prayed Fajr, right? While you were still in Wudhu, you put your socks on to go to work, you leave out the house. That means you can wipe over those socks all the way until the next day, the same time. 24 hours for the person that is a resident. You're not traveling. Methalan, for example, you made Wudhu 5 o'clock in the morning, right? You prayed. You put your socks on, right, at 6 or 5:30, right? The person who's not traveling has a 24-hour period to keep wiping over those same socks. So, for example, throughout the day, you pray Wudhu, you pray Asr, you can wipe over the socks. You don't have to take them off. You pray Maghrib, you can wipe over the socks. You don't have to take them off. You pray Isha, you can wipe over them. You don't have to take them off. Let's just say you get stuck, you got to do a double at work, right? A person say, you know what, since I'm up all night, I'm going to pray 3 rak'ah. Right? They're praying the night prayer. I'm up all night. I might as well just get some rak'ah. So they pray. They make Wudhu. Can they still wipe? They can still wipe. They have a 24-hour period for the person that's not traveling. The traveler has a longer period. All right? So for the person that's not traveling, they have how long? 24 hours, a day and a night. The second person who only has a day and a night is who? A day and a night. Is the traveler who travels to do the haram. The traveler who travels to do some disobedience to Allah Jalla wa Ala, as the ulama say, they don't get the ease of being able to wipe. They don't get the ease of being able to take their rukhsah. They don't get the pass. Why? Because they travel to do something haram. Right? Like many of them say, that the one who travels to do the haram cannot shorten their prayers. The one who intentionally travels to do the haram, and then while they're out doing the haram, they're going to shorten the prayer. Allah forgive us. Ameen. Right?
So this is the wrong topic. Does the traveler have any rupture?
Yeah, we didn't get to the traveler yet.
No, I know. I just answered that because it seems like everything I've been hearing so far, the traveler committing the haram don't get the pass.
The traveler who travels for the haram don't get no passes.
Oh, right.
The one who travels to do haram, there's no pass for them. So they can't shorten the salah. They can't wipe over the socks.
That's right.
You with me? Not the traveler who's traveling, nothing. A brother works, he travels, a sister, whatever, they work. They drive trucks, they travel. Halal, you're going to work. Or you're traveling to go visit family. They're traveling to do whatever, right? It's permissible travel. They have a lot of things that the traveler can do. Shortening the prayer, combining the prayer, wiping over the socks. But the one who travels for the haram, for the weekend, on the weekend joint, they say, you know what, huh? They know, Allah Musta'an. Like Allah don't see us when we go there. Like Allah don't see us when we go wherever we going, that they don't get these passes. That they don't get those passes. So the person, these two people, that they wipe They wipe the wiping of a resident, even though the person is literally traveling, they don't get the pass of a traveler, so they can only wipe for a day and a night, the 24-hour period. طيب. Well, it says, when does the time start? When does the 24-hour time period start? This is important. All right? Are with me? We already know that the resident, you're in your own city, your own town, you're not doing no traveling, you got 24 hours. Right? And the one who does travel, but it's for some harams, for some disobedience, they both only have 24 hours. When does the 24-hour time period start? يقول من حدث بعد لبس. من حدث بعد لبس. The time starts not when you put the sock on. The time starts once you break wudhu in that sock. مثلا, I'm getting dressed for work. I get dressed I pray, put my sock on at 5 o'clock. I'm in wudhu, pray fajr, put my sock on at 5 o'clock. I don't break my wudhu until 8. The 24 hours starts from 8. I put the sock on at 5. When did I break wudhu? 8 o'clock in the morning. The 24 hours starts from 8 o'clock in the morning.
Hey, good head, exactly right. Good head. Check this out. So, when you break the wudhu, right? Let's say the salat coming in at 8:30 for Maghrib.
Okay.
You broke your wudu at 5. So that's when the 24 hours starts, or when you make that next wudu?
La. The 24 hour, the time period starts from the hadith, when you break the wudu. When you break the wudu. And some of the other may even get even more specific. Yeah, we already stopped. They get more specific. I'm trying to say how to say this when, sometimes a person go in the bathroom and they in there for a while. Oh yeah. This is how specific they get. It doesn't start from when you started breaking the wudu. It starts from when you're finished. When you're totally done, then that's when the mudda starts. You went in the bathroom, you had a stomach ache, you was in there for a half hour. You went in at 8, by 8:30 you were done. The mudda starts from the end of the hadith. When you finish 8:30, the mudda starts. Allahu Akbar. Brother man, this is other matters. None of this is my stuff. This is other matters. This is why Allah raised their level. Allah raised the level of the people of knowledge. Because, he says, so it starts from the hadith, when you break the wudu, after putting the shoe on. Or the sock, I'm sorry. Not just when you put the sock on, it starts from now. I got dressed at 6, so I got till 6 tomorrow. No, it starts from when you break wudu in that sock. Whatever time you break your wudu in that sock, that's when the mudda starts. If you're really trying to wear the socks for 24 hours, or if you're really trying to wipe over the khimar for 24 hours, then you need to pay attention to when you break the wudu. Pay attention to time if that's what you're trying to do. He says, so the musafir, the traveler, وَمُسَافِرٌ سَفَرَ قَصَرْ ثَلَاثَ بِلَيَالِهَا. The traveler can wipe over those same socks for 3 days and 3 nights. For 3 days and 3 nights. Clear? Person might be out, moving, they're traveling, the situation is what it is, right? They have the ability to wipe for 3 days and 3 nights over those socks. Or the woman, any of the things that we spoke about. Whatever, she still has the khimar on, right? She can wipe over that 3 days and 3 nights.
The traveler who reaches his destination, the time expires, 3 days, 3 nights, prays at the Muqim, right?
Yes. Hold on. You talking about praying or you talking about wudu?
But I mean, we're praying, well, the wudu as well. Wudhu is the.
Hold on, shit.
All right, Wudhu. He makes the Wudhu. He has that book for 3 days, 3 nights.
The traveler,
Right?
yes.
That time expires. Now he makes Wudhu like a resident,
Yes.
right? But then he travels from that city to another city
Mm.
and returns that night.
Mm.
What does he do?
No, that's good. Let me see something. All right, let me read this last sentence, and then we'll deal with that, all right? So the traveler has 3 days and 3 nights. That means the time frame for a resident is 1 day and 1 night. The time frame for a traveler is 3 days and 3 nights. Clear? What happens at the end of that time frame? What do? They have to take the sock off, take the khimar off, and do a regular wudu with water. If you was wiping over your socks for 20, you take them off. Once the time period's up, you have to take them off and do it from scratch, as we said. Sister has to take off the khimar and do a regular wudu from scratch. No wiping. Right? No wiping over anything except for the head. فَإِن مَسَحَ فِي سَفَرٍ ثُمَّ أَقَامَ أَوْ عَكَسَ فَكَمُقِيمٍ. And we're going to stop here. If a person, you traveling and then they wipe, right? So let's say, for example, you went to New York, right? So while you're up in New York, it's pray outside the message, you gotta get on the road. So you say, well, I'm gonna use the bathroom and make me good before I get on the road. Right? That means, in reality, he's a traveler, right? They travel from Philly to New York. They make wudu while they're in New York, or wherever they're, Boston, Connecticut. They make wudu while they're there, and they get ready to get on the road to come back to Philly. So when they wipe in New York, how much time do they have to wipe over their sock? They really got 3 days as a traveler, right? Huh? You with me? Clear? It don't take 3 days to get back to Philly. It takes a couple hours to get back. Once they get back, once they can come back to their town, once they come back to their town, Aqama, then they wipe as a resident. It ain't like because you wiped and you was in New York, I got 3 days on these, I'm gonna keep wiping. No. Once you return to a resident, you wipe as a resident. Clear? Is everybody clear? Once you return as a resident, you start wiping as a resident. And they say the opposite is the same. A person wipes in their house and then they travel to New York, or they travel to Boston, right? Or they go down south. When they wipe, they were what? A resident. Right? But then they begin to travel. They begin to travel. When they wipe, they were a resident. So they say that in this case, they will still wipe as a resident for 24 hours. You started your wipe as a resident, you got 24 hours on that. Clear? You was traveling and you wiped, but you come back home, you're a resident. And always, y'all, always, the safest thing, even though there's a difference between what you can do and what a person feels safe doing. Right? Meaning, if I was traveling and I wiped over my socks every 24 hours, it's no problem. Why? Because in reality, I don't have to take them off after 24 hours. Well, she doesn't have to take off her khimar after 24 hours as a traveler, for real. She can wipe for 3 days and 3 nights, but she says, you know what? I'm gonna just I'm gonna just take my socks off and do it regular. She can do that, or he can do that. Meaning, the mess with the time, y'all, the mess is a rukhsa. It's not obligatory to do it in the first place. It's permissible to do it. So if you and a brother traveling, y'all go to the hotel, y'all going to sleep, the brother says, I'm keeping my socks on because I want to make mess tomorrow. I want to practice the sunnah. Why? I'm keeping my socks on because if you take your socks off, what happens? You can't wipe on them. If you take them off and break wudu. Pay attention. Whenever you wipe over a sock, it has to be put on and you're in a state of wudu. Clear? Which means if the skin becomes exposed, on that foot, that means you can no longer wipe. What's the benefit of wiping? The benefit of wiping is that if there's some difficulty in removing something, so the ease in just wiping over. If your whole foot is out, then it's out anyway. There's no need for the ease. Right? That's why they say once the sock is removed and a person breaks wudu, I don't know if I made that clear. Let me make it clear. Let me get an example. For example, my intention is to wipe over my socks. So I make wudu, I put my socks on, I'm a resident, I'm a wipe over these, I got 24 hours, I know that. So I go to work, all of that. I can wipe over my food, come home, good. So if I go home, right, and on the way home, or I get home and I use the bathroom, can I still wipe? Right, I can still wipe over my sock. I use the bathroom. Because you break wudu doesn't mean you can't wipe. Okay, I go home, I use the bathroom. Everybody with me? I use the bathroom, and then I say, you know what? I'm gonna take a nap. And I take my socks off. I took my socks off and I didn't have what? Wudu. You with me? I took my socks off and I didn't have wudu. Which means, when it's time to pray, I can't wake up from my nap, put my sock on and say I'm a white man. Clear? Everybody with me? In order to wipe, number one, you have to be in wudu when you put them on. Number two, you have to stay on, meaning the foot doesn't become exposed. Once the foot becomes exposed, you can't wipe over that. And even in the more detailed books, they give more conditions to what the hoof should be like, yes. Say it again. Jay, that's a good question. The brother says, Methaline, you go home and you say, you know what? You're in wudu, you're fine. You're in wudu, right? I have wudu. And I said, these socks dirty. I want to change them. I want to change these socks. So he takes his socks off. Right? Everybody with me? He changes his socks and puts on some fresh ones. While he's in wudu. Is he okay to pray like that? Huh? He's fine. He didn't break wudu. He never broke wudu. Now this is the question, because it's honestly, y'all, it's a lot of detail to the situation. It's a lot of different ways it could be. And I'm just giving you a glimpse, and that's not real accurate right there. There's some more detail to that. And honestly, we did mention, we just didn't get to that yet. A lot of the questions y'all asking, we just didn't get to. But I don't want to go too long because we gotta pray. But when we do the conditions, I think hopefully it'll make a lot of other things clear. I think the questions y'all had, because we didn't go through the conditions, of the khuf. Meaning, number one, it has to be put on and the person's in wudu. What does the khuf look like? It has to be a certain type of cover. What does it have to cover? It has to do all of that. One issue is, for example, and we stop here, a person gets up in the morning for Fajr, they make wudu, they put their socks on as a resident, which means they have 24 hours. Right? Let's use all of our stuff. At 8 o'clock, they break their wudu. So now they have 24 hours from 8 in the morning to 8 the next morning. That's not the example I wanted to give. This is an example that we need to do today. It's important. The person wakes up for Fajr at 5 o'clock, they make wudu and they put their socks on, which means they have 24 hours to wipe over those socks. Clear? 8 o'clock, they break their wudu. That means their 24 hours starts from there, right? Like, Dhuhr comes at Dhuhr, they make wudu at 1 o'clock for Dhuhr, and they do what? They wipe over the socks. They're good up to now, right? They go home from work, they sit on the couch, they want to relax, they take their socks off and sit back on the couch. At this point now, the sock they wiped over, and then they took it off. Everybody with me? They wiped over the sock for Dhuhr, they went home, relaxed on the couch, and then they took off the socks that they wiped over. In this point, the ulama differ. That wudu is broken. Why? They removed what they wiped over. They removed what was wiped over, which is part of the wudu. Everybody with me? Clear? That's an issue that's just worth mentioning. Even though this book doesn't really get into that, it's worth mentioning that a couple things break the wudu. A couple things break your time period for being able to wipe. Just because you have 24 hours initially, there are things that could break that. Okay, there are things that could break that. Like what? If something that you're wiping over, something from the foot becomes exposed. And when you take the sock off, you expose the foot. Right? You take off your sock, you can see the foot. The point of wiping is that the sock doesn't have to be removed. That's the point of the wipe, so you don't have to remove the sock. So if you remove the sock, then what's the point of wiping? Everybody clear? If you remove your socks, what's the point of putting them back on to wipe over when you could have washed them, which is the asl? Clear? The wiping is a pass so that you don't have to remove the sock. Now you're gonna remove the sock and then put it back on the wipe. Everybody get it?
So how do I look at that? Because you said the young man said that like if I take it off, change them. So he puts the dirty ones in the hand or whatever, and then he puts on fresh socks. But he takes them off while he's in the wudu.
That's fine. You can take them off while you're in wudu.
You're saying
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. His question was he takes them off. We gotta stop here. Inshallah. He takes them off. This is what's important to know when you take your socks off. This is the most important thing to know for this issue of breaking your wudu. When you take them off, this is what you gotta think about. Did I wipe over these yet or not? If I wiped over them and I take them off, it's gonna break my wudu. If I never wiped over them and I take them off and I'm in wudu, I have no problem with my wudu. So I wake up, make wudu at 5 o'clock, put socks on. 7 o'clock, I say it's hot. I'm gonna put my sandals on. I take my socks off. I'm still in wudu. My wudu is fine. I never did any wiping. Nothing connected to wiping. So I'm fine. But I put on my socks on at 5 o'clock. I break my wudu at 8. I wipe over them socks at 9:30. Then at 11:30, I take them off. Once you take off what you wipe, that's what breaks the wudu. In the bottom, to some of the ulama, which is an issue that's gray. And if we have the ability to stay away from gray issues, then just out of caution, then inshallah, that's better to stop here. Inshallah, until next week. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Ma'alish.
Ready?